This episode of Mr. Hutchings History is now streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and all your favorite platforms like Castbox, Podcast Addict, and Amazon Music. Tune in now.
Welcome to Mr. Hutchings History, where the past comes alive. Let's dive into today's story.
Hey everybody, ready to dive in.
Always.
Today, we're looking at World War II
Okay.
and more specifically, how it impacted African Americans.
Yeah.
We've got a whole bunch of sources for this one. Military records, personal accounts, historical analyses, and it's
Wow.
it's a story full of contradictions when you think about it. Fighting for democracy abroad while facing discrimination at home.
Yeah, that paradox of patriotism, that's really where
It's heavy stuff.
Yeah, it really exposes the complexities
For sure.
of the era.
Yeah. Being asked to, risk your life for a system that treats you like a second-class citizen.
Absolutely. And that paradox is reflected in the military itself.
Okay.
We're not just talking about separate barracks, but limited opportunities.
Right.
Over 90% of black soldiers were confined to service roles,
Really?
like cooks and drivers, reflecting the prevailing belief that they weren't capable of combat.
Wow. It's just frustrating to see
Yeah.
prejudice limiting potential like
Right.
that. But then there's also the Tuskegee Airmen.
Of course.
I'm really struck by the fact that they faced discrimination even within the military.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me more about the challenges they encountered?
Despite proving their skill and bravery, they still encountered prejudice from their white counterparts.
It's hard to even imagine.
Imagine the mental fortitude it
Yeah.
took to excel
Right.
in such a high-pressure environment while constantly battling racism.
It really is a testament to their determination to not just serve their country, but to pave the way for
Absolutely.
future generations.
It really is.
Their story makes me think about all the other untold stories of individuals who defied the odds during
Yeah,
that time.
definitely. And while the Tuskegee Airmen are a celebrated example, their experience wasn't the norm.
Right,
Segregation remained a defining feature of the military throughout World War II.
right. And it's crucial to acknowledge both the progress and the persistent challenges.
Right.
Now, shifting gears a bit, the war also had a massive impact on the home front with that second wave of the Great Migration.
Yes.
Hundreds of thousands of African Americans left the rural South for the industrial North between 1941 and 1945. What I find fascinating is they were often moving from one form of discrimination to another.
Exactly. It was a forced choice between staying in the South and facing Jim Crow laws or heading north for economic opportunities while still encountering racism and segregation.
Wow, so did the North truly offer a better life?
Right.
It just seems like a tragic irony.
It is.
The war effort needed their labor, but society wasn't ready to treat them as equals.
Right.
And this tension led to horrific events like the 1943 Detroit Riot.
Yeah, the Detroit Riot, sparked by a minor incident at a public park, serves as a stark reminder of those simmering racial tensions.
And 34 people lost their lives.
Most of them African American.
So we have this backdrop of war migration, social unrest. How did African Americans themselves respond?
They started demanding more newspapers, spearheaded the Double V campaign, encapsulating the dual fight for victory against fascism abroad and victory against discrimination at home.
It's so clever.
It is.
And catchy.
It is.
It wasn't just catchy. It effectively connected individual rights to the global struggle for democracy.
Yeah. Have you
It's
ever felt compelled to fight for a cause both at home and on a larger scale?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a question that resonates even today. The Double V campaign resonated deeply within Black communities, giving voice to their growing frustration and mobilizing them to demand change.
So this wasn't just about slogans.
No.
It was about channeling wartime patriotism into a potent force for social change.
Absolutely.
And this mobilization led to a surge in NAACP membership,
Yeah.
exploding from 50,000 to a staggering 450,000 during the war years.
That's amazing.
It seems like a direct response to the war's impact on African American consciousness. Absolutely. People were fed up with the status quo and ready to organize for change. And this led to significant legal victories like the 1944 Supreme Court case Smith v. Faylier.
Smith v. Faylier.
Okay.
Right. That's the case that struck down white primaries, right?
Exactly.
A major win for voting rights in the South.
White primaries were a blatant attempt to exclude Black voters from influencing election outcomes.
Wow.
This ruling chipped away at Jim Crow and marked a turning point in the fight for voting rights.
It's amazing how one court case can have such a ripple effect.
It really is.
And there's another organization that emerges during this time, one that would have a huge impact on the civil rights movement, CORE.
Yes. The Congress of Racial Equality, or CORE, emerged during the war, advocating for nonviolent protest. Their philosophy would later shape the tactics of the civil rights movement, showcasing how seeds of change planted during wartime can blossom into powerful movements.
It's incredible to see how all these pieces are fitting together.
It really is.
The war, the migration, the activism, the legal battles, it's all setting the stage for massive social and political change to come. But for now, let's pause here and pick up this fascinating story in part 2 of our deep dive.
Sounds good. So, picking up where we left off, it's important to understand that World War II didn't bring immediate equality for African Americans.
Right.
But it did fundamentally shift their consciousness.
It's like all that pent-up frustration from years of discrimination and activism finally found an outlet. Almost like a pressure valve releasing.
A very apt analogy.
Thanks.
And it wasn't just about abstract ideas of equality, it was deeply personal. Imagine you're a black soldier returning home after witnessing the horrors of fascism, fighting for democracy abroad.
Only to come back to the same old discrimination.
Exactly.
The hypocrisy must have been just incredibly jarring.
It was. That stark contrast between the ideals they fought for and the reality they faced fueled their determination to fight for change at home.
Yeah.
With the same vigor they fought against oppression abroad.
It makes you think about how those seemingly small individual experiences can build up and eventually create massive change.
Precisely. And that's exactly what happened with the impact of World War II on African Americans.
Yeah.
It was a confluence of factors: military service, economic shifts,
Yeah.
the Great Migration,
Right.
increased political mobilization.
All those pieces coming together to set the stage for the civil rights movement. It's like a historical puzzle, and we're finally seeing how all the pieces fit together.
And the legacy of that period is still felt today.
Absolutely.
It reminds us that the fight for equality is ongoing, that progress is often incremental, and that we must always be vigilant in safeguarding the rights of all citizens.
So true. It's a powerful reminder that the fight for social justice is a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely.
Now, I know we've touched on various historical interpretations of this era,
Right.
but I'd love to delve a little deeper.
Right.
Can you elaborate on the different perspectives historians have offered?
Of course. You have traditionalists who view World War II as a turning point, a catalyst for the civil rights movement. Okay.
They point to the increased activism, legal victories, and the shift in consciousness as evidence of the war's transformative power.
Then there are social historians who, instead of focusing solely on major events, examine the everyday experiences of African Americans during this period.
Exactly.
Both positive and negative.
They provide a more nuanced view, highlighting the complexities of life on the home front, the struggles, the triumphs, and the ways in which Black communities adapted and persevered.
And we can't forget the revisionists.
Of course not.
They challenged the notion that World War II was wholly transformative, arguing that it didn't fundamentally alter the racial power structure in America.
They emphasized the continued inequalities and discrimination that persisted after the war, reminding us that progress isn't always linear.
Right.
They argue that while the war might have opened some doors, true equality was still a long way off.
And finally, there are the post-revisionists who acknowledge both the progress made during the war years and the limitations of that progress.
Recognizing the war's role in planting the seeds of change while emphasizing that the struggle for equal rights was far from over.
This perspective offers a balanced view, acknowledging the complexities of the era and recognizing that World War II was neither a singular turning point nor an insignificant event in the fight for racial equality. It was a period of both progress and persistent challenges, setting the stage for the civil rights movement that would unfold in the decades to come.
It's fascinating how each of these perspectives offers a valuable piece of the puzzle, helping us paint a more comprehensive picture of this pivotal moment in American history.
Absolutely. And it underscores the importance of considering multiple viewpoints when studying history.
For sure.
History is not just about dates and facts.
Right.
It's about understanding the complexities of the past and using that knowledge to inform our present and future.
Well said. And before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave our listener with a question to ponder.
Okay.
We've explored the wartime experiences of African Americans, the paradoxes, the challenges, the triumphs.
But let's shift our focus to the individual. Imagine you're an African-American soldier returning home after the war. You've seen the horrors of fascism fought for democracy, and now you're facing the same old discrimination. How does that experience shape your view of America and your role in its future?
That's a powerful quote to consider as we move into the final part of our deep dive. It compels us to reflect on the individual stories within the larger historical narrative. It really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
How do you reconcile fighting for freedom abroad only to return home to a system that denies you those very freedoms?
It's tough, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that dissonance highlights the contradictions within American history, the
Yes.
gap between ideals and reality.
Right, right.
It really speaks volumes about the resilience of African Americans who continue to push for change despite facing such profound disappointment.
It's really remarkable, isn't it?
It is.
Their unwavering belief in the promise of America,
Yeah.
even when that promise seems so distant, it underscores the power of hope and the unwavering pursuit of equality.
Their story is a potent reminder that progress isn't always a straight line. There are setbacks, there are hurdles, but the pursuit of equality must persist.
Absolutely. There's the lesson there for all of us, right? To stay engaged, even when change seems slow or non-existent.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now we've spent this deep dive exploring the complexities of World War II's impact on African Americans. What stands out to you as the most significant takeaway?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think what strikes me most is that the war acted as a catalyst, accelerating a shift in consciousness that had been building for years. It wasn't just about policies or laws, it was about a fundamental change in how African Americans saw themselves and their place in American society.
Yes, and how they were willing to fight for that place, not just accept the status quo.
Right.
We saw that in the WWII campaign, the surge in NAACP membership,
Yeah.
the rise of organizations like CORE. It's as though the war experience, both at home and abroad, ignited a spark that couldn't be extinguished.
That's a perfect way to put it. And that spark, that determination, fueled a movement that would transform America in the decades that followed.
A transformation that, while still ongoing, has undeniably shaped our society today. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, those who dared to envision a more just and equitable America.
It's true. Thinking about that legacy, it's worth reflecting on the individual sacrifices that built this movement. Military service labor on the home front, facing daily discrimination, and tirelessly organizing for change. These weren't abstract concepts, they were lived experiences.
Absolutely. It's a powerful reminder that history isn't just about dates and events. It's about people.
Yeah.
Real people whose lives were shaped by these forces and who in turn shaped the course of history.
And it reminds us that the fight for equality is a shared responsibility, not a spectator sport. We all have a role to play in carrying that torch forward and continuing the work of building a more just and equitable world for everyone.
Well said. I think we've all emerged from this deep dive with a richer understanding of this crucial period in American history.
I hope so.
A story of resilience, courage, and the ongoing fight for equality.
It's been a privilege to explore this with you, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to continue learning and engaging with these important issues.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving for a better future.
Thanks for listening to Mr. Hutchings History. Keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.